All right, well then I will kick us off. All right, so hello everyone. What was that?
Jonna, I'm not seeing on there. I know that's.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know she's going to be online. I know that. So I'll just keep an eye out for it, and if I see her name pop up, But wanted to say hello to everyone. Happy MLK Day.
Yes.
I appreciate the fact that you guys are all here. I'm sure that, especially with like schools being out and stuff, we don't necessarily want to be here, but we're making a difference. And we're doing things that I think would make him proud. So I am going to, open up this meeting with attendance. So let me have a sheet here somewhere with all my names. Here we go. All right. If you could please say here or present, that would be lovely. Thank you. Catherine Barrett.
Here.
I see you. Aaron Black.
Here.
Catherine Bullard. Here. Gigi Conte. All right. We'll wait on her because sometimes she comes in late. Jonna Drake. I will keep an eye out for her as well. Okay. Gary Drace.
Video, Zoom.
I see you, Gary. Well, I can hear you a little bit. All right. Terry Hildebrand. Sarah Mayer.
I'm here.
Jordan Pryor here. Mike Scholl.
Here.
Thank you. Jessica Schneider. Jessica Schneider. She should be coming. She texted me earlier, so I'll keep an eye on that one. Ron Stoddart.
Here.
Patricia Swiger. Here. Merlin Thompson.
Here.
There he is. Shane Vick.
Here.
Natalie Walsh.
Here.
Lori Ward.
Here.
She is. All right. Perfect. Okay, and then I'll keep an eye on Gigi, Jonna, and Jessica. Let's see if they pop in at any point. Just to go over the agenda real quick. So today, after public comments, we're going to be talking about our council presentation, just kind of things that we want to add, if there's any questions that we want to ask, and really focusing on as well as the things that we've accomplished as a group. From there, we'll go into document requests. I think that there are definitely some new things that we need to request after or following the Chief Ticer interview, and I've got a couple of them written down for us. And then afterwards, if we have time, plan for our February 7th meeting. So remember, everyone, we do have a 5th Monday this month, so you will get the 5th Monday off. Deep down, I know some of you guys are smiling. I can't see it with the masks, but I know you are. So hopefully we'll have time at the end to be able to do all of that. So I do believe that there was a change to the minutes based off of Gary's request. We had said that he had phoned in and he joined us via Zoom. Are there any other changes that need to be made to the minutes besides that? Anyone on Zoom got anything for me? No? Okay. Well, then if that's the case, then we'll get those fixed up and, have them ready for the next meeting then. And with that, we move to public comment. All right, no public comment in the chambers. Do we have any phone-in comments?
If you would like to raise your hand to speak to this item, please press *9 on your phone or choose the raise your hand feature. Chair, I don't see any phone in public comment.
All right.
I do see that Jessica Schneider has joined us though for the minutes.
Yeah, I took the X off by her name, so. All right, well then if that's the case, then let's just jump into the good stuff, shall we? I thought I saw a hand raised for a second, no?
All right, caller with the last with the phone number ending in 5142, please accept this request to unmute or press *6 on your phone.
Yes, hi, this is Commissioner Drake. I've been trying to get unmuted. So do I just sit like this?
Thank you, Jonna. We'll get you admitted. Sorry about that.
Okay, thanks.
And I've taken the X off next to your name, so we know that you're present now.
Okay, great. I appreciate that.
All right, well then, I guess while she's getting that fixed up for us, we can probably go ahead and just start with our council presentation. I just want to confirm the presentation is the 25th, correct? Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, then with that, I mean, I know that we will want to break down, the 8 pillars of trust for them. Yes, Ron.
Excuse me, just a quick question.
Yeah, your mic, please.
Just a quick question. We're going to be talking a lot about the presentation to the council. Do we have any idea of whether we're going to be the main topic of the meeting? How much time they are allocating us, just so that we can have an idea of what to put together?
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, the meeting on January 25th will start at 6 o'clock. The first item on the agenda is the municipal judge's annual review and check-in with council with possible executive session. So she usually makes a presentation on some information that she gathers. That usually takes about an hour. So we're at 7 o'clock. You are the next item on the agenda. I have an item that follows behind you on this particular thing here. The council would be trying to get done by 10:30. But so right now you're at least an hour or more. It just depends on how long you think you might need. The last item is at least an hour. So somewhere between 8 and 9:30, somewhere in there, is what we're looking at.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that question, Ron. And I don't think anybody wants to listen to me talk for longer than an hour. So we'll try to keep it a little bit more concise than that, hopefully. Yes.
Yeah, we have other boards and commissions. They've come and it's usually been about an hour.
Oh, okay. Okay. Then with that, so, again, 8 pillars of trust. I mean, I'm ready for any type of rapid fire. Anybody want to add in anything? Is there anything that we want to ask council? I'm kind of leaving this up to you guys a little bit to hear your take. Yes, Commissioner Bullard.
I'm concerned that, but they hear how, I think, frustrated we all are that we haven't, can you hear? How frustrated we are that we haven't gotten that report yet. And when that happens, I don't know, but in a sense, to me, that's when we finally get to do that part of the work.
Just for clarification, do you remember, or which report specifically are you talking about? Because we deal with a lot of those.
Not the Jensen Hughes.
Right,
the-
right.
The internal affairs.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll do Catherine Barrett and then we'll do Catherine.
Hi, thank you so much. I just had a comment that I made a couple of times about one of the 8 pillars of trust being time. I totally understand and support the idea of the fact that this is going to require a timely commitment. And, but I don't see that as a pillar per se. So I'd like to just revisit that. Does anybody else have the same kind of a feeling about taking that one out and then just using it as a, after all the 7 pillars are presented, saying it's going to take time to implement this and commitment? I also think that accountability needs to be one of the pillars, and it doesn't seem to be.
Okay. Jessica, is your comment directly related to what Catherine said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I support what Catherine is saying. I'm sorry, my dog is growling. And yeah, I think accountability is incredibly important, and time might be maybe a bit of a distraction.
Did anybody else have a comment based off of what they were just talking about? Yes, Catherine, or Commissioner Bullard, excuse me.
I just respond with what today is, and that justice deferred is justice denied.
Okay. Any other direct comments about that? Commissioner Vick?
The 8th one being time, right? That's the one we're talking about?
Yes.
And what is your high concern on that one? Because I thought we discussed it at length when we all approved that and voted. That time was an integral part of like how fast communications happen, the time frame in which investigations are done, the time frame in which the community is allowed to, or there was a whole bunch of time wrapped up into that one pillar. If I remember that discussion point, that was a very integral part of how fast things happen and that kind of stuff. So dive into more of why you want to get rid of that one.
For me, a pillar of trust are things like dependability, accountability, reliability, things like that. Time is a component of implementation rather than a pillar, in my opinion.
Gotcha. I mean, and I do agree that it is, it is a quantitative measure, and we're talking about qualitative factors here. But the way I see time almost is like patience of, understanding this is not going to be fixed in a day. Rome wasn't built in a day, and understanding that we have to have patience to be able to do it. So patience might have been a better word, but I think that that's kind of what time is relating to a little bit.
I'm not so sure.
Yes, Natalie. I haven't forgot you, I promise.
I'm not so sure that that's what our conversation was. I don't think it was.
I'm just saying that's how I see time personally.
Right, but I think what we need to do maybe is go back to the minutes of that meeting. Somehow, maybe what we should do is take the things that we agreed to and then use this time to flesh it out. Because if your presentation were to say time and then you just presented it as that the public needs to be patient, that's a very different message.
Correct.
Than what we've discussed. So maybe because I agree with Catherine, I mean, my first, and I only need one pillar is accountability personally. So.
And it's not there.
But so why don't, maybe if we take our list and then kind of talk about for your presentation purposes, what that means.
Gotcha.
Because I think this is, hopefully this will be a, high entertainment city council meeting where there's lots of viewers. And, I think people want to hear that, and it's important that it's, so maybe if we have if we can come out tonight with a little sentence or paragraph of what each one is, that will help you so that you're not just writing your interpretation of it.
Agreed. Okay, then with that, I just texted Jeffrey to see if he has the pillars handy. Yes. So we'll wait on that and we'll come back to, oh, you have them handy? Oh, never mind, Jeffrey.
I even have the discussion on the meeting that was in there.
Oh, okay. Well, then take it away.
The biggest, everybody, there was, according to the notes, it looks like it was pretty much the discussion was, as Catherine brought up, around the word time. And the only big notation here is that Commissioner Black stated that time recognizes the establishment and rebuilding trust may happen slowly. And I know the discussion, around that all had to do with getting information out, not versus the quantity, but like a process. But they were carrying within, right? The discussion on that defines
What was the first one?
carrying with intent. That was suggested by Commissioner Hildebrand and Shell. That requests the idea of transparency also be included into that. Contractual trust, that's pretty quantitative. Open and transparent communication, honesty, dependability, consistency, competency, and time. Those were the 8 that were all, and I can repeat those. if you
Yeah, say
need.
them again.
Caring with intent, contractual trust, open and transparent communication, honesty, dependability, consistency, competency, and time.
I'm not sure if I'm muted, but may I make a suggestion?
Sorry, who was that? I didn't quite hear it. Is
That's
Jean-
Jonna.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, as opposed to time, could we put timeliness in regard to outcomes and work products, things like that? Does that make sense?
That makes sense to me. Does that sound workable for anybody? Natalie, you look like you have something.
I think on that comment, I agree with that. I was thinking that's the portion of time that I agreed with had more to do with timeliness. So, but I think if it's time as Commissioner Black described it, because that's saying, be patient. Of course, we need to define how long a time requires patience.
Right.
But the flip side of that was timeliness. When you have a trusting relationship, when someone's patient, it's because you've earned the patience. It's because you've produced results in a timely manner, and then you deserve patience. When it's like you never get the information or there's a bunch of hurdles, patience isn't earned and it's not due. So I think those two things sort of go together in that way. And I think that maybe reflects kind of the stuff we've been talking about.
The word timely. Because Commissioner Black brought up the fact that one of the questions she had for Chief Tyson was, and one of the things he talked about was a timely response to 30 days to 14 days or whatever they were trying to use their supervisor. So I think it's at least he was addressing a time issue of getting things out and taken care of. That's so timely.
Okay.
Is a better word than just the word time.
Okay. Then let me check with our city attorney. Is that something, changing it from time to timely, would that require a vote?
Chair, the prior motion that set the definition did have a vote, and so this would be an amendment to that.
Okay. Catherine, real quick.
I agree with what everybody's saying about timeliness, but I feel that's part of dependability, and maybe if we can incorporate, like everybody talks about accountability, but that's not one of these. If that belongs under honesty, maybe we can say honesty / accountability, dependability / timeliness. Some of these things that kind of go together, because I want you to be able to tell somebody what we mean by each of these pillars.
Yeah.
Chair Pryor?
Yes.
I just want to add on that I also support what Commissioner Barrett and Commissioner Walsh have said in regards to this. And I think perhaps even when it comes to timeliness, if we could ask for some city staff resources to figure out like how soon are other comparable communities getting information? What is the time limit? What is considered legit and what is considered dragging our feet?
Thank you. Yes.
So when we're, okay. I'm one that, thinks you can't define trust in any pillars. So, but the purpose of the pillars was, I think, for us to have criteria against which to then measure the behaviors that we're reviewing according to these pillars. So, I mean, I think when we're talking about them, and if it needs to be, that was our first meeting and that was before we started working, and maybe we want to go through and talk about what they are and then make a motion, to have that be refined. Or, whatever, I don't necessarily agree with Moses on that point. But you didn't ask me, so I will not opine. But I think for our purposes, we're trying to get ready for, so you can do a presentation.
Mhm.
And so you're going to talk to these people that all have their own views of what trust is, and they're probably going to tell you. That'll be like
Sure.
45 minutes of it will be them telling you what trust is. So these are our measures. So we've come up with 8 things that we're going to measure behaviors that we're reviewing. And, you know, these are what they are. And I don't know that, I mean, I agree. It's like the whole thing is about accountability. Everything is about accountability. So, I mean, I'm just kind of saying, keeping that in mind, we're just defining these so that we can measure the behavior. So in that example, time and timeliness, or the timeliness version of it, is important. And I think the police department already recognized that because they shortened their response time.
Right.
So that they get like a little star on that one. And then, you know, what are the other ones? I can't, you know, I don't know what contractual,
Well, and
yeah.
to Commissioner Vick's point, whenever you had mentioned that accountability falls under that contractual trust, that's that makes sense to me at least. And so, you know, Catherine, if you would like to weigh in on that, I am curious as to what your take is on contractual trust being more so the accountability side of things. And how you,
Catherine Me or Catherine Bullard?
what was that?
Catherine Me or Catherine Bullard?
Sorry, Barrett, excuse me.
Hi, thanks. I actually am one of the people who read this, and they have 4 pillars. One is competence, one is integrity, one is reliability, and one is caring. And they incorporate everything that we're talking about under one of those 4 categories. I don't really care how we organize it. If you're able to speak to it, Commissioner Pryor, Chair Pryor, that's great. But I really don't know what we mean by some of these things. And so, you know, if maybe we could get, you know, caring, this is what we mean by caring. Contractual trust, this is what we mean by that. That, you know, that would be helpful to me.
Okay, yeah, definitely. Shane, yes, Aaron.
All but one of these I brought to the table, so I'd like to speak to why I chose those pillars of trust. And that was more for myself, how I wanted to be defined as a community trust commissioner. This was more about me than what I was putting on to the department or the city, just to be clear. I wanted to make sure that the public knew that me sitting on this trust commission was extremely important. This is what trust means to me. This is what I define any trusting relationship having to have. And I hold myself to this standard sitting on this commission. And that's what it meant for me. Whether or not this spills out to the city and we actually see that in return is to be determined after some time. But these are the standards I hold to myself sitting on this commission. And that I would hope all of us can agree to and hold ourselves to that standard as well, in trying to gain a more trusting relationship between our city and our public. So just to be clear, that's how I came to that.
Gotcha. Okay. Commissioner Stoddard, then Commissioner Walsh.
Since we're trying to get a presentation together, I think it's important that we impress the city council that we have some standards that we're looking at. And I think those pillars were great. I think that it would make sense to amend time to timeliness to make it more understandable, and I would so move.
Okay. Commissioner Walsh, we'll come back to that, Ron.
Just a follow-up question, clarification.
Mhm.
To Commissioner Blick. So when you propose those, you don't mean these to be what we're measuring?
No, that was not necessarily what I thought. We as a trust commission should define trust to where then yes, we're holding ourselves to these standards. And then this is also what we're going to be looking for.
Okay. So yes, as those are what we're measuring you know,
Sure, and I think that all of these align with key findings with the Jensen Hughes report. I think all of these align with a lot of the public distrust comments, with communication, with consistency, with the honesty, transparency. I think these just align, it seems, with comments and the issues. And I wanted us as a trust commission to be able to say, this is how we define it, and this is what we're going to be, this is the lens we're going to be looking at trust. And hopefully the public would be in agreement with this, that this is also what they're looking for in trust.
okay.
But I'm fine with wording changing or adding something, or the word accountability. I understand if that's something really glaring, then it probably should be in there, because you're likely not the only person that's going to see that as something that's glaringly missing. So I understand that.
Commissioner Barrett, then Commissioner Vick.
I didn't have a comment. I was just very much agreeing that
Okay.
accountability needs to be.
I think you had a virtual hand up earlier, so I was trying to get
All
to you.
right. Okay.
Then Commissioner Vick, Commissioner Schneider.
Actually, I'm gonna yield to Schneider. I want to hear what she has to say.
Okay, then he's yielded to Schneider.
Okay, I agree that accountability needs to be a part of this. I agree that timeliness versus time needs to be a part of this. And I have some further comments, although I would like to defer to Commissioner Vick to hear what he has to say as well.
I was just gonna give, so here, in the meeting minutes for that, right, this is crucial that the commission is able to communicate to the public what trust means in context of the commission's work.
Mhm.
I think this is what we all kind of come to with that. So I had this, the day I put all this together and defined, and Commissioner Black brought in 4 others, right? We all combined those together, right?
Mhm.
So it's something like this, the sewer in the middle of your street blows up, right?
Mhm.
The contractual trust that the city is going to show up and fix that sewer, right? Did they come knock on your door, make sure you were okay, carrying with intent? Did they make sure that your house is taken care of? Did they communicate with you that they're going to have the street shut down for 2 or 3 days? Were they honest in what exactly happened? What caused the sewer to blow up, right? Were they dependable and not? Did they get there? Did they do the work? Does your house still have water, sewer service, that kind of stuff? Were they consistent on their contracts? Were they consistent in showing up, fixing the streets, making the stuff right? Did they do it well? Did they have to come back 2 days and fix it again because they didn't do it completely the first time? And was your sewer fixed in a timely fashion that you weren't standing around in your basement in ankle deep water? That's kind of what these do.
Mhm.
And at some point, I would hope this commission starts looking at all those things, from rent to water to the Alex Dominia to I'm sorry, totally Karen Gardner. All those things define how we as a commission go, okay, let's look at these stuff. Where was it violated? And here's our recommendations to get the public to understand that we need to build a bridge of trust. That's kind of where I'm going with that.
I like that.
So we're gonna let Vic do that part of the presentation.
I mean, you said it with so much conviction, I might just let you do the whole presentation.
That's where I'm at.
Chair Pryor, can I follow up a little bit?
Yes, Commissioner Schneider.
And this is not something I planned to say this evening, but I think when we're talking about a presentation and community trust, I'm sure many commissioners, as myself, have had a lot of conversations with community members. And I just want to put out there a couple of things that continue to come up from community members that are reaching out to me. One, there are too many commissioners to make good decisions in the very short period of time that we have to work together. And I wonder if when we give our presentation to City Council, if asking for an indefinite extension of the Community Trust Commission would be important, and potentially, clearly I don't want to kick any other commissioners out of the way as if I could, but you know, that we maybe define the scope and the number of people on the Community Trust Commission if we were to go forward, so that decision-making is a little more efficient, is worth thinking about. Thank you.
No, I definitely agree with that. That was one of the things that I eventually wanted to bring up to you guys, but I thought that we would kind of get through the nitty gritty first. because we're still on the pillars. But yeah, I do agree that it would be nice to, I see you, Merlin. I'll get to you in just a second. I do think that it would be good for us to raise that question because I am curious as to what the intent was and what they were expecting to get out of us with giving us 16 members in such a short amount of time to get things accomplished. I am very curious as to what their intent is. Merlin. Up, you're on mute.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
I asked that specific question on my day of my interview. And it was kind of interesting what I got for an answer. And so I'll just share that with you guys now. I asked the two persons that were interviewing me why they felt like having a team of 16 people was a good number. And here's the answer I got. The answer was given to me that they had been talking to a lot of the city people and they wanted to see a large commission tackle this problem. And then I followed that question with saying, well, why are we in an even number and not an odd number? Because we'll never be able to break a tie or anything like that. The answer to that one was we don't want this commission to be in that position to need to break a tie. We hope that a large majority would be backing whatever it was that needed to be accomplished.
Gotcha.
So I just wanted to bring that up and let you know what they told me when I asked that question.
Well, thank you for letting us know that. Fair enough. Real quick, just because I know that we were talking about the pillars and I know that we haven't finished with it yet, but I do feel bad. I've had Tara in the wings for a little while now. So Tara, floor is yours.
So, I don't know if we want to well, I'll just tell you what I wanted to say. So I was thinking we were created to come up with recommendations to help bridge the trust between the residents and the city. But my one idea is that I feel like there would be a huge statement to the citizens if the city would give Ray Mendoza an award publicly. The chief of police, the city manager, the city council, for speaking up and doing the right thing during that incident. He was the only one that did the right thing in that incident. And with the Jensen Hughes, one of the things they brought up was the bias with the BIPOC community and how afraid they are to speak up because of retaliation. And I feel like since Mr. Mendoza did speak up very politely, he handled himself exceptionally well, I felt like, in that situation. And I just feel like that would be a huge thing for the city to see, the chief of police lifting that up. And maybe it would help with that feeling that the BIPOC people have towards how they'll be treated if they do speak up.
Right.
So that was just my idea, that maybe we could bring in a timely manner to the city council. So we don't wait 6 months to be like, oh, maybe we should give Ray a award.
I really like that.
So anyways, I was just going to bring that up and see what the council or the commission felt.
I'm seeing a lot of positive head nods, so I like that, and I'm going to put a little star next to it for now.
Okay.
Who's Ray Mendoza? Sorry.
He's the community member that, spoke up and was like, I think you're being too rough with this woman.
Oh.
And yeah.
There's a award. Okay, perfect. So I put a little star next.
Since
Yes.
that's a new issue, I'll make a motion
Okay, yeah, to make it official.
to, that be a recommendation.
Okay.
I think Tara makes a really good point. The city, the limited amount of information that we were provided regarding the Karen Gardner arrest included that interaction. We all reviewed it. And I completely agree with Tara of all the actors involved that day. He was the only one that did the right thing.
Mhm.
And
You should be recognized.
that I support us making a recommendation to council to give him some type of recognition.
Excellent.
I'll second
So,
that.
all right, then.
Before that happens real quickly, can I ask like for a slight amendment? Also in
Yes,
support?
what first, Jessica?
That's okay or no?
Well, I wanted to hear what you had to say, yes.
Yeah, I would like to say, in particular on this day, that absolutely our BIPOC community members should feel more trust with our police department. And that's a very big issue. And one of the reasons I'm here for this. And the other is that I don't want it to be performative. I don't want it to just be a, hey, we said that we appreciate this person. And so we're done with that.
Mhm.
I think that in addition, and I'm sorry, Natalie or Commissioner Walsh, if I don't want to overrun what you're trying to do, because I support it completely. But I want to say like yes and to that, and the yes and should be we do need a DEI committee that talks to the police department. We do need various other measures that show that we aren't just giving someone a pat in the back for absolutely doing the right thing. Absolutely doing the right thing, but that other people actually feel confident, speaking of building trust, that they can do the right thing and not get in trouble or get shut down.
So you're wanting a DEI commission? Sorry, I couldn't quite hear the last little bit after DEI. You were looking for a DEI what?
I just think there needs to be like not performative communication between BIPOC community members that want to provide it and our police department, because yes, this gentleman should absolutely be commended for what he did, but are other community members going to feel comfortable doing what he did? I don't think that's going to solve that issue entirely.
Yes, Commissioner Walsh.
So one of the things that I think is important is that we make recommendations for things that are in bite-sized pieces. And I think giving a commendation based on the evidence that we haven't gathered enough evidence in our inquiry, Jessica and I, Commissioner Snyder, I don't disagree with you at all in the larger picture. But I think the process that we're involved in, I think we do have to, follow some process is, we're collecting information and then we're conferring amongst each other and coming up with decisions. So I think because we haven't yet collected the information to support the amendment, and because I think it would weigh down the original amendment to such a degree that the original motion itself would never get any light on it. So I disagree with your amendment for those reasons.
So if I can interject real quick, and then I would like to hear from Gary after this. Just real quick, I think Jeffrey and I have talked about that this sounds like it would be two different motions. Not saying that they wouldn't go hand in hand, but it would be two different motions to have Mendoza, either awarded something or recognized for what he did, and then following up with, some sort of a DEI related action item afterwards. But we'll
Definitely support that.
I do want to hear from Commissioner Draith real quick.
Yes, I'm getting awfully confused here.
Is there any way you can speak up just a little bit for me, Gary? We're having a hard time hearing you.
It's your system. I can't help it. I'm heard everywhere else. But anyway, I'll try and scream. How's that? Any better?
We'll just be really quiet in here and try our best to hear you.
I'm totally confused because I think right now there's 3 or 4 motions on the table. I think we need to finish one motion before we move to another motion.
Very much.
Yes, there are currently 2 motions on the table. Yes. And with Jessica, I guess that would make it a third. I do have them written down. But so let's take a step back. Let's go ahead. Natalie, would you like to make your motion again for Mendoza?
Okay. I move that we make a recommendation to council to award a commendation to the eyewitness at the Karen Gardner arrest, based on our review of the evidence provided by the city, that his actions were commendable and proper.
And I second that. Hold on, Jessica. I promise we'll get to your motion here in just a second. Okay, so I second that. Let's all take a vote on it. And if everyone on Zoom, if you are going to vote for it, I'll have your hand raised and then we'll do, if you're against it, I'll do that afterwards. So first things first, all those in.
Hear the motion again.
The motion is that we make a recommendation for council to give some sort of award or accommodation to Ray Mendoza, the eyewitness for the Karen Gardner case. All right, all those in favor,
Aye.
raise your hand.
It's you to clarify.
Aye.
Who is saying aye? I'm having.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye, this is
okay, perfect.
Great.
And all those opposed, please raise your hand. Okay, so the motion passes. All right, next, before we get to Jessica and the DEI,
I didn't see, were there any opposed?
I think that there was one opposed.
Okay.
It looked like it, but I could be wrong.
Well, I mean, I think it makes a difference if you're saying by unanimous, because we just heard how important that was from city council.
Then let me ask, Commissioner Barrett, yours was the only one that I think you might have just had a hand lingering for a little while. Were you in
Yes.
favor of?
That's correct. I am absolutely for this.
Okay, perfect. Then it passes unanimously. Thank you, Commissioner Walsh, for clarifying. Yes, Tara.
I'm totally happy with how it went. But I really felt it was important that Chief Ticer was involved in it because that makes a statement that the police
Oh, good.
are behind it. And I feel like that's what BIPOC people need to see.
Yes.
So anyways, that was my little one.
Okay. Okay, good clarification. Yes, Commissioner Bullard.
So the clarification is that whatever honor is given to, that Chief Ticer is head of that, basically. Okay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, now with that, we do have a motion on the table for Ron. 1 second, Ron. Yes, Patty.
I also was in favor of that commendation. I just want to put out there, it can be dangerous for a citizen to inject themselves into a police event.
Mhm.
Just want to put that out there.
No, I agree with that wholeheartedly as well. Yes. Okay. Now we do have a motion from Ron that's been, I've tabled it, and it was to change time to timely, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so would you like
Shouldn't
to?
be too controversial, but that's
Yeah.
what I
Fair enough. Will you make the motion one more time for us, please, Mr. Stock?
Yes, I would move that we amend our pillars to use the word timeliness instead of the word time.
Okay, excellent. I will second that. All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand, and on Zoom as well. Okay. All those opposed, please raise your hand. Okay. I'm sorry, Catherine, it does pass. So it has been amended to timeliness instead of time. Excuse me 1 second.
Timely or timeliness? Was that what you're-
He said timeliness. That was the exact word you used. Okay. Now with that, let's jump back forward to what Jessica was talking about with DEI. Jessica?
Yeah, thank you. And I don't necessarily need to get caught up in the term DEI or DEIB, which I actually prefer. I do want to say, I know that the Trust Commission has not had time to gather conversations with the BIPOC community, but the nonprofit organization I work with has, and we actually have minutes from those meetings where BIPOC members of our community who are not identified by name have talked about generations of not feeling comfortable talking to the police, confronting the police, calling the police when they were in danger. And I'm happy to share those with with identifying information removed to the Trust Commission for potentially more information or a vote. But I do, I think if we're going to recommend that, Mr. Mendoza gets a commendation, which we did, and I did, I think we should also maybe take some time to ask him what else he thinks would help, rather than just giving him an award. What would make him more likely to step up in the future, and what might other people who, are Black, Indigenous, people of color, Latinx, whatever terms you want to use, folks who have been historically underrepresented or marginalized, what do they want to see in addition? So I guess that's my very long amendment. Wow, sorry.
Okay.
Or new motion.
I do like that because, as a person of color on this commission myself, I, especially back in Texas, did not like calling the police for any reason whatsoever, especially in the summer whenever I was darker. It's just not something I felt comfortable doing. So I do like that suggestion. Would we want to keep it with just Ray Mendoza, or would we think about bringing in a couple of different BIPOC individuals? Yes, Jessica. And then
absolutely bring in a couple of individuals, but including Ray if he is interested.
Okay. Okay. Merlin, did you have a hand up? I couldn't tell.
No, sir.
Okay, sorry. Mike Scholl.
Yeah, I'm not, just a comment on Mr. Mendoza. I mean, I don't know. I have nothing negative to say about asking him to speak, but I also think, I think maybe it's important we think about who or what organization, I'm a little bit uncomfortable just asking him as by virtue of circumstance, he became a member, that became, known in the community. And then we're presenting him as an expert or someone who's supposed to speak with authority for a population of people. And I think if we want to have, some participation or get some perspective, I think we should maybe try to be a little bit more thoughtful about who we ask and what we want them, what we want to ask of them in a public meeting, as opposed to just, asking Mr. Mendoza to speak for a, it's paint with a pretty broad brush, I guess. So I'm not opposed to it if he's willing to, but I also think I'd like to kind of approach it a little more thoughtfully and think about, who in the community I think we could invite that could kind of speak for some of those populations that may feel, marginalized. And I also have one other additional comment, and this is admittedly an old man comment. When you start throwing around terms or acronyms, please explain, because I had to Google BIPOC and I fully admit my own ignorance in that. So, I don't want to get caught in kind of a jargon loop. So if we're using acronyms, please define them, at least for admittedly the old man that I am. So thank you.
Sure thing. So yes, actually, is that a direct comment to what he was talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, then we'll go with Vic and then with you, Commissioner Barrett.
I just wanted to echo, because I was thinking the same thing, that once, how do you say this? If we're going to pick populations to come and speak to us, we have to be thoughtful about it, because just from what I see on the emergency medical side of things, I mean, there's elderly people that don't want to call an ambulance. There's elderly, right? There's young people that don't want to, talk to the school truancy officer. I mean, there has to be a reason Does that make sense?
It does.
For lack of better vernacular, like Mike said, if we broad stroke this, I mean, we're gonna stall at some point because like everybody on this commission, everybody has a thought, opinion, and we're already worried about 16 people. Now we're gonna have, you know, potentially how many of this kind of stuff. So there's gotta be groups that represent, you know what I'm saying? I just think, I totally agree with Commissioner Scholl on that there's gotta be a thoughtful purpose for that before we open up that door. And I was gonna say the same thing. I'm asking Catherine and Natalie what all these acronyms mean, because I just don't look at people. Everybody's everybody. You're a citizen.
Right. Well, just so everybody knows the acronyms, DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion. BIPOC is Black, Indigenous, and people of color, just so everyone knows. And then Commissioner Barrett, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you so much. I may have missed the part about where we want Mr. Mendoza to speak. I think that we need to be very clear and thoughtful about what we want council and Chief Ticer to say in this, presentation, this recognition of what he did. And then just offer him, let him know that we would like to present this award to you or this recommendation, whatever to you. And if you have some words that you would like to share with the community, please prepare those and present those at the time and leave that up to Mr. Mendoza.
Okay.
I'm wondering if I missed something.
No, that to me sounds right. Yes, Aaron, Commissioner Black, excuse me.
So I just want to make sure we're staying on track with, we're talking about the report to the city council on January 25th. So one of the recommendations was the Ray Mendoza commendation. But as far as the topic of conversation of inviting other people, I don't think that's part of our city council report. And I want to make sure that I've got a lot of different notes and thoughts on that report. And so I'd really like to get back to that if we can.
So I think that there was some confusion, and I'm going to try and clarify, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the original idea was the day that Ray Mendoza accepts his award, accommodation, whatever, he would then at city council have the opportunity to speak and say, hey, thank you. This is the reason why I acted the way I did. This would help me and other people of color to feel more comfortable doing these kinds of things, and reaching out to the police more and things like that. I think that's, and if he declines, then he declines. That would just be something that we would extend him. We can't make him speak, but I think that that's where we were. And then somehow we got off track and wanted to bring in people to speak here. Yes, Natalie.
Yeah, I think we should clarify that. And Aaron, I'm on the same track as you are. We're talking about the presentation to council on the 25th, which it's just us saying, this is, how far we've gotten. I think I heard Jessica's motion really as a request to put it on an agenda for us to then explore this issue. And I would agree with that. But I think Jessica's a little out of order on our agenda. So it is a little confusing, to tell you the truth. I'm not going to speak for you, but I think that you actually want us to learn the things that you've learned in your nonprofit organization so that we can make some good recommendations. And I would support that.
Thank you, Natalie. Yeah, I really just wanted to make sure that we weren't just, checking this off as a thing that we accomplished if we invite him to receive an award, and that we actually, care about the work that's being done. But I also agree with what you're saying, and I will for a minute. Thanks.
Okay, so we have the Ray Mendoza recommendation. I know that it's about time for us to move on to the next item, but I do want to stick around long enough to see if there are any other recommendations that we would like to make to City Council. Again, Tara, fantastic recommendation. But does anybody have anything else before we move on to the next, to the document requests? Yes, Natalie.
We could ask the city manager if he's aware, if the city ever gives commendations to any citizens.
Can you further explain for me?
Well, if they already, it's like, oh yeah, we give like the best snow shoveler civilian award out.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Like if they have existing category for recognizing citizens of the community for their excellent citizenship. Like
Gotcha.
maybe that's just what we're asking them to do if there is such a thing.
City Manager Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioner. We have a proclamation that kind of calls out folks, different groups, and it's been used a couple times for individuals. We don't have a stewardship or a citizenship or any of those kind of things award. I don't recall having prepared one in the last 6 years as city manager. That doesn't mean it can't happen tomorrow. It's just we haven't had a standard format for that.
Okay, so we'll be the first. We'll be the
Okay,
first.
sounds
That's a
good.
idea.
So, yeah, we can
Okay, thank
do
you.
it. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's just-
It's excellent. Then it makes it even a better recommendation because
Then he'll be the
there's
first.
some good citizens.
Yeah, there we go. Commissioner Barrett?
Yeah, the other thing, somebody already mentioned this, but the number of commissioners that we have, I'd like to ask, or recommend to the council that we allow this commission to become smaller by seating the alternates as they become needed, and then letting the commission become smaller by attrition.
Okay. And I did want to also mention, I had forgotten to put it on the agenda. I was going to choose an alternate today, and since I didn't inform the public, I can't do that now, but that is something that I would like for us to address here soon, because I do think that we do need to fill that 16th spot. And I just wanted to make mention to everyone that I promise I haven't forgotten. It's just something that, just kind of fell through the cracks with this past agenda. So, but can you kind of further explain like what your idea is on bringing our numbers down or reducing it? Like how do you have
Yeah, after we see our alternates, because, they've been committed to doing this and coming to meetings and all of that stuff. After we see our alternates, if they want to become part of the commission, then we just do not replace those alternates. And if people need to leave, we just don't replace them.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay. Commissioner Scholl.
Yeah, I would just a couple things. One is, I would caution, how deep we wade into this at this point. For one, because some of it's defined by ordinance or by the, and which is a matter of kind of city law and so I think, we'd have to kind of see how that, we can't just kind of unilaterally decide we're going to, shrink or grow. I think that's a function of how we were kind of established by the city council. So I want to be careful about that. The other thing that I would like to bring up, or just an idea, I refer to the Jensen Hughes report that spoke about the need to reform the Citizens Police Advisory Commission. And I think, maybe if we think, how would we like to see that, excuse me, that board provide, the oversight moving forward with the, a board that's been in place, or the, a commission that's been in place, and with the people that are on our, that are on our board that would, move over to that perhaps as a way to kind of facilitate kind of an attrition, I guess, for lack of a better word. But I before we start kind of, just reducing, I would like to kind of try to be a little bit more thoughtful about how we approach that.
Okay. So now the one concern that I have, and I might be misunderstanding you here, but did you mention that we would send some of our commissioners then to the police advisory board for changes?
Well, I not,
Yeah.
what I was suggesting, maybe as part of a recommendation, maybe there's part of a recommendation that we make that's aligns with the Jensen Hughes report, to reform or to change the Citizens Police Advisory Commission, and that some of the members on our commission who I think are more focused on the law enforcement aspects of the trust, we recommend a recommendation or nomination or something, so that just is a way to facilitate that, and to kind of some of the community knowledge that we're gaining from being part of this commission. So I don't, it's not a fully formed motion, or I just think that we need to keep in mind that, that was part of the Jensen Hughes report, and we should think of opportunities and how we as a community would like to see that board function. So, I don't know if that's.
So, because I do hear what you're saying, and there are good parts to it. The one thing that I'm worried about is, we as the Trust Commission also don't want to seem like this overstepper where, hey, if we don't think that your board or your commission is doing something right, we're just going to send in our own people to fix it. And I know that that's not what you're going for. So maybe instead of making it a recommendation, maybe there are some questions that we can form around to ask council, hey, when it comes to the police advisory board, based off the Jensen Hughes, and try and see if we can work something out mutually with them.
All I'm suggesting is that I think it bears a further discussion at a later date. I don't think we need to get it. I mean, personally, I don't think we need to get in the weeds, and I'd like to look at it a little bit more. So I'm content just to introduce the idea, and then if it's worthy of having a discussion at a future agenda, that's great.
Yes, Natalie.
I have to do a little more procedure here. The ordinance defines us. The city council as a body passed this ordinance. Asking any one commissioner their opinion on the language of the ordinance is not binding on us. So if they want to be helpful and in conversation and et cetera, but I think you start down a slippery path once you start changing. For example, I read the language of the ordinance to be broader than the position city council or city staff has taken in this body in terms of accessibility to information. Could talk about that at a later date. But the ordinance defines us. If we want to make a recommendation for a smaller, that's ours to do. What they had in mind, I think what they had in mind is not at all what's going on. So I think that, and I asked that, I said, straight on in my interview, I said, this ordinance is written so broadly, you could drive a truck through it. And the male city council member responded, that's what we want. We want you to take it and run with it. And I was like, all right. So I just don't want to start, when you start being interactive like that, it misunderstands our role. I mean, it would be as if the planning commission said, well, city council, do you want us to, is this one you want us to approve? Those may be backroom conversations, but they certainly should not be in the front of the hall conversations. So I just think I don't think it's appropriate for us to ask them. And people will differ in their opinions on it. I think what they're going to do is decide whether we last or we don't. And I think our job is to get as much information to the public via this presentation. They're just there. This is our report to the city council, and hopefully people hear it. So if we get as much information out there, and then when September comes up, or if we make a motion to ask them for more time, I wouldn't ask them for them now, but if we prove some value to some people and the city council wants to shut it down, then that's the political answer. But I don't, so that's my statement.
Gotcha. Is this a direct to what she was saying? Kind of. Okay. Then, okay. We'll go Commissioner Swiger, and then I believe, oh gosh, there were so many hands that just popped up. Okay, Commissioner Swiger, and I'll get the rest figured out here in a sec.
I would like to hear what Commissioner Black has put together it was about the presentation. Is that correct? I just would like to hear that.
Oh, okay. Commissioner Black.
Thank you. I actually have a few things that if I was a public member not sitting on this, that I would want to know and hear at this report. And one of those is all of the requests for information that we've made thus far, what we've received and what we're still awaiting, so that they know. I also would ask city council specifically if they think the city manager and Chief Ticer should consult with either the trust commission or the city council themselves, or the PCAB, the police, the other police board, during their process to come up with the implementation plans in response to the Jensen Hughes report. Because the city council meeting ended that night with city manager and Chief Ticer saying, we'll come up with an implementation plan on our own. And I'm just wondering, where's the input from the community? And so I want to know from city council how they feel about that, and how they answer that question. I'd also like them to know what the irons that we have in the fire already. I would imagine the public would want to know that. We are in waiting for city manager to facilitate a meeting between you and the police board chair. That was offered to us, and that might be a nice segue into meeting with that group, seeing their thoughts on the Jensen Hughes report, and how we might work together, or maybe they have input on what we've come up with so far. We're awaiting the Karen Gardner investigation report. We're awaiting a presentation from city manager on the blue team process. And we also are looking forward to more interviews with city leadership, specifically HR and risk management. That's what I'm looking forward to in city manager. And to let the public know, we did have a CIRSA presentation. We were able to get a lot of information from that. We did do an interview with Chief Ticer. We haven't even had enough time in this meeting to talk about our thoughts on how that went. But those were the most important ones I'll share. Thank you.
So and just to echo everything that you just said, no, these are questions basically that we would ask, or things that we would present. So I don't believe we need a motion for any of them, but we would tell them our pending requests, as well as the requests for information that have been fulfilled. What is being implemented based off of the Jensen Hughes report? Who is involved? If it's only the police, how does council feel about it? Mentioned that we are still waiting on a police advisory board chairman meeting between them and myself. The blue team report, as well as waiting on more interviews, the CIRSA presentation and the Ticer interview. Did I get all of those? Okay, just making sure. Okay, that adds a lot of meat to the presentation, so thank you.
But if I'm a public member, I'm gonna wanna know what have you guys been doing? What documents have you requested?
Right.
I mean, I kind of went through all of the minutes, and there's a lot of requests out there that we've not yet received, and, to kind of keep tabs on, this is what we're looking for, and we'll let you know next report when and if we've received these.
Right. Just real quick, Jeffrey, can you clarify what was just sent so I can better understand where you were coming from with that?
Yeah, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Just Commissioner Black had just made sort of posed this idea about asking council whether they thought that the LPD and city manager's office should consult the CAB and or the CTC around implementation of the Jensen Hughes recommendations. And it seems to me that that's very close to that if you all wanted, that could be a recommendation that you make, that they should do that.
Okay. And then real quick, I did see that Commissioner Barrett's hand was up. Also, John and Drake, has your hand been up? You're in the attendees, not the panelists, so it's hard to see you sometimes. Oh, did she drop the call? Oh, okay. then Commissioner Barrett, then Commissioner Walsh.
Just had a clarification for Commissioner Walsh. Are you saying that if we want to reduce the size of this commission, that we should just do so and not request permission for that?
Sorry. I think that, I think procedurally what we need to do, I think what Jeffrey just said is just conceptually correct. We make recommendations. We don't make requests to the city council. And we don't ask their permission to make a recommendation. We make our recommendations. So, and if there's anyone telling anyone to the contrary, it's just not how it works. Read the ordinance. So we can make that recommendation. We can say, we've actually all gotten along great, even though we might not agree with each other on stuff. But, for the most part, we haven't had to use a odd even vote. We've, had our votes and there's been, clear majorities or not. And that's our recommendation, that while their initial thought may be whatever it was, I still don't really understand it. We've come to learn that, the flow of information is the, greatest thing that takes up all the time. And, that we'd address, community representation differently than, a bigger number. And that's our recommendation, and they can, decide yes or no. And then that's kind of the answer. But I don't think we ask them to do it. I think that's our recommendation and we can have our reasons. And I'm saying it because I think half of the problem when I watch city council things is they just make up whatever rule they want at the time. And then depending on how many people agree with them, they kind of get away with it. So I just think if we stay consistent to our same processes, we're a better example of how to, do things. So this is just a status report. It's not an opportunity for them to drill Jordan on stuff, and it's just a status report. So I think, Aaron, going through the minutes, that's the best idea. This is what we did. This is what's outstanding. And that's our report. And then we get, back to work, going forward. And it's simple, but I think those are the two pillars of interaction. One would be, that we make recommendations and, that we make status reports, and that's it.
Thank you. Commissioner Scholl.
Yeah, I was just going to echo. I agree with Commissioner Walsh said. We're empowered to make recommendations, not to make unilateral decisions. And we are, the city council is they're the elected body of the city. And, we have to respect that. And so I think, I'd like to see when we get to the point where we're making recommendations that it's a little more substantive beyond just changing the composition of our board, quite frankly. And I would kind of echo what, I believe it was Jeffrey, the comment that he had before Commissioner Walsh. I do think, we should, if we're going to take the step to make some direct recommendations, I would rather see us do it on something a little more substantive than our commission makeup first before we start kind of going down that road. But that's my opinion.
Thank you. And I understand and I agree with some of that. Commissioner Barrett.
I'm sorry, if I can just respond. I believe that if we seat an alternative now, we then have to choose another alternative. We have to reach out and choose another alternative. And I would like to not spend time doing that as a commission. I would like to spend time digging into what we need to be doing to restore trust in the community. That's the only reason I suggest taking on the number of people in this commission.
Well, hey, let's do this since it was previously mentioned that, we'll have a discussion about alternates and everything with the next meeting. Let's just go ahead and, we don't need to worry about the makeup of the team now. We can talk about it at a later day. With that, because I know that we are running a little bit low on time and I'd like to get to the next thing, there is one recommendation that I would like to motion for, and that is that we recommend that LPD involve the community to some degree on the implementations based off the Jensen Hughes report. If anybody has anything that they would like to add into that it's, it was a bit of a rough idea, but I do think that that is something that we should recommend to City Council.
Could you elaborate a little bit on that? I'm not sure I understand that. You want to have the community involved in their implementation of the recommendations, or feedback on the recommendations?
Yeah. So it's based on, based off of what we know, LPD is supposed to have some sort of implementation plan based off of the Jensen Hughes report. And I agree that I believe it's important for it to not just be LPD making the implementation plan, that it needs to be the community. Now, I'm up to, open for interpretation from you guys to see what you guys have to say, but whether that's us helping out or if that is other community members or if that's another board, we need citizens in on that is more what I'm getting at. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I guess the implementation plan has to be internal. I mean, the citizens aren't going to tell the police department how to implement it because they are not inside the police department. But I think that having citizen input on the recommendations and perhaps the priorities, what are the most important things to implement? What are the things that they would like to see implemented earliest? And that sort of thing, I think would be very valuable.
Okay, excellent.
And I think that it also helps build up the foundation of the Trust Commission.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about, number one, we were a little bit of a disadvantage because the Jensen Hughes report hadn't been done. So there was a lot of things that we had to kind of go around because we had another organization here doing this study.
Right.
So we needed to wait until that study was done. Well, that study was just done last week when they presented it to the City Council. And that we intend to look at all of those recommendations and maybe give our 2 cents worth as to priorities and which might be the most important, and encourage the police department to implement them using our most important pillar, timeliness.
There we go. Thank you for that. Okay, real quick, Commissioner Barrett, then Commissioner Black.
I just want to absolutely agree with what you just said. And I think it's important that we deep dive into the Jensen Hughes report as a commission at some point and then make recommendations based on that and not come to the 25th meeting with anything about that just yet. I don't think we're ready.
Okay, Commissioner Black.
I agree with you, and that's similar to the question that I had for City Council that Jeffrey recommended it be a recommendation that city manager and Chief Ticer incorporate some kind of citizen community involvement while they're coming up with this implementation plan. And so that could be CTC, that could be part of the other police board, but I absolutely agree that I would second your motion.
So then let's do it this way, because I know that there are a lot of things that will go into that, and it'll be a lot of, well, who gets to do it, who doesn't. Like Ron was talking about, there are other things about talking about timeliness and things like that. So for the sake of just being able to, get the motion out there and make it something that can be accepted as of tomorrow, but can still be subject to change without needing to deep dive, too much into it. I would motion that we make a recommendation to City Council that when LPD makes their implementation plan, that they have some kind of community involvement.
Second.
Okay. Commissioner Hildebrand seconds. Did somebody have their hand up? Did I hear that right?
I also seconded. I have another motion to make.
Okay. Merlin, do you have your hand up?
I just wanted to make sure that, Jordan, do you have everything you need for this meeting that's coming up? Because I think that's like the most important thing on our agenda, is it not?
I mean, what exactly do you mean by do I have everything that we need?
Have we given you enough information to be able to give your presentation to the city council as you were expected to do?
I believe so at this point, yes. Commissioner Black added a lot of things that I think we can take deep dives into and that we can, really hone in on. So I think at this point, yes, we do.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay. Then if there's, Commissioner Bullard.
I would like to see the part, and I'm not sure that I like the phrasing of the motion. But I like to see it maybe start with the Jensen Hughes report, which their primary finding was the importance of police relations. And starting there, and which also says, hey, we have read the Jensen Hughes report, and we're on board with working with them to do that.
So I'm just a little bit confused. Are you wanting us to change the language of the motion?
Yeah, I didn't quite get it, but yeah, I do, or at least I want to hear it again.
Okay, so the motion is, I motion that we make a recommendation to city council that when LPD makes their implementation plan based off the Jensen Hughes report, that there is some sort of community involvement in that implementation plan.
I guess I'd like to see it start with the Jensen Hughes report, because of the Jensen Hughes report that we would recommend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was good in the, okay.
Yeah, that wording helps.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll be real specific with it, and then I'll say it one more time for everyone. I motion that we recommend to city council that when LPD makes their implementation plan based off of the findings in the Jensen Hughes reports, that there is some sort of community involvement in that implementation plan.
I would just add city manager, including LPD. I would just add the city manager to that. Because it's city manager.
Oh, city manager
and Chief Ticer.
Okay. Let's do this one more time then. All right. I motion that we recommend to city council that when LPD and the city manager make the implementation plan based off of the findings from the Jensen Hughes report, that there is some sort of community involvement with that implementation plan.
I'll second.
It is a long motion, but if we want to make it specific, like we're trying to do, we have to do it that way. So we have a second. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, all those opposed, please raise your hand. All right, I think that passes unanimously. I didn't see any opposing hands. Excellent. Okay. Now with that, we have 5 minutes till 8 o'clock. So I am also going to motion that we extend this meeting by 30 minutes so we can do our document requests and plan for our February 7th meeting.
A second.
Okay. All those in favor of extending 30 minutes, please raise your hand. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, it passes. Sorry, Commissioner Stoddard. All right, so then we'll go ahead and move along for document requests. So there were 4 that I had written down based off of our interview with Chief Ticer, which was there is the use of force complaints, the manual for the complaint process, the recruiting plan for LPD, as well as the summit report. Am I missing any of the ones that Ticer had mentioned in the interview? Yes, Commissioner Barrett, and then Commissioner Scholl.
Not that he mentioned in the interview, but it's 2022 now, and we don't have any of the 2021 numbers, and just wondering if we can get a report on those numbers as soon as possible.
Sorry, say that one more time for me.
It's now 2022 and there were no 2021 figures in Chief Tice's report. So just asking if we can get those as soon as they are available.
Okay, so let me. And specifically, what report are you looking for 2021?
Everything that was in the Chief Tice report about stats, he provided 18, 19, and 20. He didn't provide any stats for 21.
Got it. Commissioner Scholl, and then I definitely skipped over Commissioner Schneider at one point, so we'll come back to you, Commissioner Schneider. But Commissioner Scholl.
I have a request. It's a little, maybe it's subject to a little bit of discussion, but one of the things that I was kind of observed and was curious is what I'm interested in understanding the structure, the management structure that cities have for police departments, particularly the fact that the chief of police answers to the city manager, and is that a common practice? What I'd like to know how other like communities or communities in the region, whether or not, the chief of police is a direct hire of the elected board, or if it's a function of the city manager, and what how I'd like to be able to, just from an organizational perspective, I'd like to understand how common or what other communities do, because I do think it's an important component of accountability and understanding, how we can maintain accountability going forward. So does that make, Mr. Chairman, I hope that made sense, but.
Yeah, so I just you were looking for a PD and city structure report. Is that correct?
Say that again. I'm sorry, you cut out slightly.
You're looking for an LPD and city management structure report. Is that correct?
No, no. What I'm looking for is a comparison. It's really
cities.
Really simple.
Yeah.
Loveland, the chief of police sits under the city manager. What I want to understand is that when, and among other similar communities in Colorado, and is it common? Is this because I think that I don't want to get into my reasons for, but I like, before I kind of formulate my opinion, I'd like to kind of understand how, where the chief of police sits within other communities, from a management perspective, how we compare.
Gotcha. Okay, Commissioner.
I was just going to comment to Commissioner Schultz that if the commission wants to start doing their own research, there are several communities within the state of Colorado and abroad that have an Office of Emergency Management. And that person is hired by the state, who then controls, not the right word, but fire, police, ambulances. So that's something, if you want to start as a commission looking at, there's a position called the Office of Management Emergency Services Unit. I believe like Boulder City may have one of those, Aurora City may have one of those that accredits people, do all that kind of stuff. All that all works. So those just something starts research as a commission.
I'm sorry, can I ask who's speaking?
Yes, Commissioner Schneider.
I was just wondering who was speaking just now.
Commissioner Vick, sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Okay, I think that might be a good place to start, because the one thing that I am kind of curious about, and I guess City Manager, you're more than welcome to chime in on this. Would we as Loveland have that readily available about other cities?
Mr. Chair, I can almost go through them right now, but I will reserve the right to respond to you in writing as you, if this passes, that's for information. But most of the guys, I can tell you what they do right now. So a lot of that depends on the nature of the fact that we're all home rule cities. We all have charters that guide us. And so I'll have to put some information together to get the one-offs like Boulder and some of the other cities like that. But Longmont, Fort Collin, Greeley, all of them, I can.
Okay, thank you.
I can get that information for you. It's information we can get for you.
Okay. So Commissioner Scholl, is that something that you would be interested in?
Yes, please. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, then, so the language on it is correct. Will you make the motion for that, please?
Do you need me to make that motion, or is it?
What was that, one more time?
Are you asking me if I need to make a motion for that, or I just thought we were discussing including in all the information requests, and then we're going to do one motion with everything, or am I missing? Sorry, I don't know if I'm missing something on the.
Said, are there any other documents? He's.
Yes, there are other documents, but I'm just saying specifically because I know that this was something that you brought up. And if that's information that you're wanting, then it's the length.
I was just asking if it can be included in our information request, and I'm assuming we're going to make one motion for everything. I didn't know we were going to make individual motions for, so.
Okay, we'll come back to that and I'll on it just to make sure that I get it right for you. And then Jessica Schneider was next on our list.
I actually want to speak when we get to the agenda portion.
Say that one more time.
I actually want to speak when we get to the agenda portion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, I thought.
When you get to the part that talks about the.
Oh, to call on her. Okay, sorry. For whatever reason, the Zoom call has gotten a lot quieter. Yeah. We'll go Hildebrand and then we'll go Commissioner Black.
Okay, I would just like to request a document that states how they pick or choose the SROs.
Okay.
Student Resource Officers.
Yeah.
Yes, so like what their qualifications are for the officers, how they choose them. Yeah, and how long they serve, a job description. So just the document around the SROs.
Okay. Yes.
Sorry. She asked about that last meeting, I think, and I had said that I could ask, I would be willing to ask, or however, the person who's in charge, who I think still is Master Sergeant Rapson, is that correct? And I do have the name, unless they've changed officers and or schools, I have the list of the 8 SROs and what schools they are attached to.
Yes, I just want more of like how they choose those 8. Like what are their qualifications? What are their standards? Why they're chosen to be in the schools with the children?
The way I see it is we can never have too much information, so we can still add that to our motion for a document request. And then if you can find out anything additional on the side, we will always take the extra information. Okay, Commissioner Black.
I'm just wondering about the requests for informations we've already put out there. And I'm just wondering if you could ask the city manager if we could get a timeline on when we might expect that.
Yes, city manager, would it be possible for us to get an update on the outstanding items that we still have?
Sure. The first one is on the list of things we're working on right now is you'd asked about the blue team process, how that works, what's it include and so forth. And I've talked to the chief and we're working on that now. We'll have that presentation and information for you on the 7th of February. The second item that you asked for was some information on the 10-year history for different statistics on claims and so forth. We're working on that with SRSA right now pulling that data out. 10 years is a long time, so it's taking a little bit longer to get that all put together. We believe that information would be ready at the 27th meeting of this group.
There won't be a 27th meeting. Sorry.
Oh, there won't be.
Yeah. Or sorry, are you talking about February or January? February. Oh, sorry about that. I was thinking January. I was like,
Yeah, no, I'm
okay. Sorry about that.
So it's the second meeting of the month. Then the third item that you asked for was the sheet that started it, but your request was, can you please look at all of the statements that the city has made to the public and others about what they said they're doing or going to do with the police department and the officers, and what is the current status of all of those requests? That one is for March, first meeting in March.
It's first meeting in March.
So those are the three requests that I'm aware of right now. And then the fourth one is I've talked to the chief about this. I think we'll just provide cell phone numbers and let the two of you get together, but was getting the chair of the trust commission and the chair of the PCAP together. So
That'd be perfect.
they're aware of that. So hopefully that's done before your presentation, maybe even. So it'll just depend on schedules.
Good.
So that's 4 requests. That's the only 4 I'm aware of.
Thank you.
Chair Pryor? This is
Yes.
Commissioner
Commissioner Schneider?
We have one more request that we voted on, and that is to have a Q&A conversation with City Manager Adams, and I don't believe that's been scheduled yet. Can we get that on the schedule for the next meeting?
Correct. So because that is scheduling and that will be an actual agenda item, let's do that with the agenda. Will that work?
Sure.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so we have those 3 items that we now have, a rough timeline of when we'll get those back. We'll talk about the interview with City Manager Steve Adams when we get to the agenda portion here in a couple of minutes. Real quick, I'm just going to go through the requests that we have, and if there's anything else anyone can think of, I'll add it in. But right now I have use of force complaints, the manual for the complaint process, the recruiting plan for LPD, the summit reports, all 2021 reports and statistics. Is that correct? Complaint.
And we have Loveland demographic data for 2019. Is there anything more current? We have the 2018, 2019, and 2020 traffic citation demographics. Is there 2021 information? We have the arrest demographics for 18, 19, and 20. Is there 2021 information? Complaints and internal affairs investigations table. Again, we have 2018, 19, and 20.
So
is there information available yet for 21?
Commissioner Barrett, there is quite a bit to that. Is it possible if you could email that to me and then I can make that part of our next document request? Because I'm running out of place to write on my my paper right now.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Vick, yes.
2021 stuff. I mean, we run over 15,000 calls a year. To get the 2021 information correct and vetted so it comes out correctly in an honest format.
It's going to take a while.
It's going to take 3, 4, 5 months.
Okay.
We can't just snap a finger.
Gotcha.
That's my comment.
So, well, we'll get the official language on that from Commissioner Barrett, and we will come back to it whenever it's an appropriate time for it.
Did you have the internal affairs reports on the list?
Well, I didn't finish going through it. So use of force complaints, manual for complaint process, recruiting plan for LPD, the summit report, the LPD and city management structure compared to other cities, which I believe is what Commissioner Scholl was wanting, and the SRO qualifications and hiring process. What was it that you were looking for, Natalie?
Those reports.
Is there a specific year associated with that or just?
Well, I think the reports they've been promising us, and they never specified which ones those were. But it sounded like it was plural. And I think it's the internal affairs report investigations associated with the Karen Gardner arrest. And they kept on saying those were coming, but they haven't given us a date yet. I'm not sure if there is one.
Excuse me, City Manager Steve Adams.
So I don't recall reports plural because there's only one IA done for the Karen Gardner situation. And that is still in a process for which release is expected sometime in March or maybe, I'm not sure quite, February or March.
Okay. Well, we'll keep an eye on that.
I mean, we know you want it.
Says the list of wherever you were saying, whatever the follow-up ones on, that's one of the, that's been pending.
Oh, okay,
It's not
okay.
a-
Oh,
I don't know which list you have.
yeah, I have that. I'll put that to
It's a
February to
continuing
March.
request, Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so to go through these requests one last time, and Commissioner Scholl, if you would like to jump in on the language specific to yours, because I still don't know if I'm getting it right. But we have the use of force complaints, the manual for the complaint process, the recruiting plan for LPD, the summit reports, LPD and city management structure compared to other cities in Colorado, and SRO qualifications and hiring process. 1 second, city manager. Yes, Commissioner Scholl. Oh, just a thumbs up?
Yeah.
Okay, city manager?
Yeah, we, in the data that was provided to the Trust Commission for the presentation, in preparation for the presentation that Chief Tyser did last week and answering the questions, was the status of use of force complaints. I mean, there's summary sheets in there and information for the last couple of years, as you had requested. So unless there's something more to that, I hear the request for the information to be updated if possible, as soon as possible. So we'll look at that. But the use of force, we did give data for that at our.
We just, Commissioner Black?
So this report speaks of complaints and internal affairs investigations. So is that what you're calling use of force report?
No, there's other information that's about how many there were, how many were resolved, what was the status of their involvement and status of.
This is what he
That was a
provided,
PowerPoint presentation slide.
right?
There's other information. I mean, there's a whole, if you look at the information.
I don't think, I don't have that.
Yeah, it was in the packet sent to you.
There was several multiple attachments.
Yeah, there is multiple attachments there. There's a lot of information there. That's why I was kind of worried. It takes a while to get through all that because it took a while for us to put it all.
So this isn't what you're talking about?
They're attachments.
Okay, so there is a, Commissioner Vick, there's a use of force complaints in the attachments.
That's pretty, the presentation that they put together was pretty robust.
Okay,
I mean, granted, we had a time limit. I understand why.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Inside that presentation, it answers a lot of questions.
Okay.
If I don't know if everybody downloaded those attachments, read through those attachments, kind of like the Jensen News, like 58 pages, I understand that.
Mhm.
There's a lot of questions that will be answered in that presentation that was all put together. So
Okay, then for now, if we go back and we realize that for whatever reason, say that particular item that we wanted wasn't there and we thought it was, we can always come back to it. But for now, I'll take off the use of force complaints since that is supposedly a part of that.
Yeah.
Okay,
A lot of.
perfect. Okay.
So, yeah, it's easy to do it. It's.
I think we're talking about this essentially,
Well, there's more than, that was the PowerPoint.
That was the PowerPoint.
There's a lot of data behind it.
Correct, yes.
Any of that, because he wasn't.
Correct. So, okay, then then the revised list that we have is the manual for the complaint process, recruiting plan for LPD, the summit report, LPD and city management structure compared to other cities in Colorado, and SRO qualifications and hiring process. Yes, city manager.
I could just add a word just to be, so we have it, it's the Summit Stone report.
Summit Stone, thank you.
Yeah, Summit is, yeah, it was. and it-
So, whenever you're.
In the discussion,
Yeah.
it just got cut off, but that would be the report I think you're looking for.
Sorry, whenever you're calling on people and trying to write notes, Summit Stone turns into Summit, so I apologize. So then I motion for us to request from the city the manual for the complaint process, the recruiting plan for LPD, the Summit Stone report, the LPD and city management structure compared to other cities in Colorado, and the SRO qualifications and hiring process.
I'll second.
Okay. All right. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. All those opposed, please raise your hand. Excellent. Okay. That passes. So that'll be something that I'll have to type up for you because that was a lot to just spew out at you. So, oh, you got it? Okay. All right. Commissioner Scholl, do you have your hand up, or was that from your vote? I guess it was from, oh, there he is. I guess it was from the vote. Okay, then let's get to the last item, which is agenda planning. We have 15 minutes. So for February 7th, basically, I guess asking, are there new interviews we want to pursue? I guess that's a silly question because Commissioner Schneider brought up a good interview for us to have. But I mean, I am open for discussion. We don't necessarily have to bring in the city manager for February 7th. It could be, someone from the SRO staff, or, I'm open to discussion for this. Commissioner Vick.
Well, I really think we should keep with the blue team process, February 7th report.
Okay.
That is going to be, in this commissioner's opinion, very pivotal of how that process worked, of what we go forward on to build the trust with this community, because that is going to be the essential piece of the breakdown of everything other than the horrible actions of the police officers.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That blue team process is the bread, butter, cake of everything that goes from that. That's
Gotcha.
my opinion, but I think we should, that has got to be an agenda item that we've got to understand, to be able to ask questions about if we need to, and go from there, because that is essential. Anytime a use of force happens in a police department, a blue team report has to be filed.
Excellent.
That's the crux of what we're doing.
Okay.
So, which will eventually tie into Tara's as well, with how they pick SROs and who's what, how many blue team reports they filed, how many, you see what I'm saying? I mean, it's going to meld, I think, in my opinion, a lot of things together.
Okay.
So I think that should be a high priority of what we understand and how we understand that process.
Okay. I saw a hand up over here. Yes, Patty, or Commissioner Swagger, excuse me.
I don't know if this
Will you turn your mic on?
here. But I was wondering if the city council is going to want to know what our plans are going forward, or maybe that's not part of it. And if it's not, that's fine. I sort of would like to know though, are we going to look more in depth at the Karen Garner issue? Are we going to look more in depth at how the police deal with mental health issues in our community? And regarding the mental health issues, I think it would be, and this is probably down the road, but I think it would be good to have a presentation from emergency services, because they do go out on calls that deal with mental health issues, and just to get that perspective.
Thank you. I'm just going to say one thing real quick, and then I'll send it over to Commissioner Schneider because I know she had her hand up. As far as what we plan to kind of do moving forward, I think that with this group, things are a little bit fluid, and that's okay, because, we might find something out from the blue team report where we're like, okay, this is what we need to focus on. And so I just think that setting that in stone right now still may not be the best option for us. But I do agree that question might come up, and that would be my response to it is, as information unfolds, we go the route that it takes us, essentially. Commissioner Schneider?
Yeah, I just wanted to move forward with, the hopefully scheduling Q&A with City Manager Steve Adams at the next meeting, and maybe even the next two meetings. We're going to be able to follow up from our report to council potentially, right? And figure out how to move forward with that information. You know, the charter is coming up a lot. I am not trying to muddy the waters of the work that we're doing, but a lot of things are coming up. And I think that City Manager Adams is in a really unique and key position for us to understand more of that. And I would hope that we don't limit that time. So I would like to make that motion that goes on the next agenda and potentially the following agenda.
Yeah. I need someone to.
So I'm just confused. So we have the blue report, but that would be blue team report, separate from Steve Adams' interview. So your motion is to do both in the same?
I'm sorry, is the blue team report separate?
Is the blue team report separate from Steve Adams' interview? That's what I'm wondering.
I would imagine so, right? Yeah, okay.
Who would be getting that report?
Because I would assume that the interview with Steve Adams would be more about like processes, management structure, and things like that, more procedural stuff, whereas the blue team report is more about, you know, in the event that there is, how did you describe it, Commissioner Vick?
Anytime an officer uses force on someone, they have to file a blue team.
Okay, there we go. So yeah, I think that it would be two different interviews.
So who are we inviting for the blue team report?
It would just be the whole blue team or whoever they're.
City Manager Adams has that information and has that from the documents that we've requested in the past to be able to give us a presentation of how that works. Or a recommendation, I'll yield to Manager Adams, but Officer Johnson, who was here that night, could detail that for us as well. So
City Manager.
So thank you. First of all, I think when you start to hear the presentation on the blue team process, you're going to have questions. And so a couple of questions for me out of courtesy for my staff. If you say you want a presentation, will you allocate time for the presentation to be made before you go into question and answer? And if the answer to that is yes, then we will provide a presentation, and we will not make it the whole meeting, obviously, because we know you have questions. But I think it will be helpful to just provide you what the process is and I will ask my police chief to be responsible for that, and who he brings to the meeting will be the staff that are responsible for that process and then can answer your questions as they come up. So I make sure we don't have to come back and have a second meeting about it. Okay. I'll have everybody there. Will there be extra time available? No, I don't think so. Because I think by the time you get into this and start talking about it, it's going to take some time to get through.
Okay.
And I think that's the number one thing that you all have talked about, wanting to get understood. And to the point of the Commissioner Vick, is it is important. And I want you to understand it. And that's why I would bring the appropriate staff to the meeting to discuss it.
Commissioner Schneider, does that no presentation from the city manager, just Q&A?
I'm sorry, it does not. I'm not predisposed to who should be giving the blue team Q&A. I personally, as a resident of Loveland, watching the blue team comments from the Karen Garner case from our police officers is really concerning to me. I don't know if I need a process discussion as a commissioner personally. I think we need answers as a community, and I'm speaking as a community member. And if we are really trying to create trust, I think we need to move beyond like a PowerPoint, and we got to just talk. So no, it doesn't. Sorry.
Real quick, Justine, can you go to the chat real quick? I think Commissioner Draith had put something. No presentation from city manager, just Q&A. Okay. Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Vick.
So I totally understand where Commissioner Schneider's coming from about the concept, but I don't know. I'd like to put in the process. If you get burnt fries, you want to know why you had burnt fries, right? What's the process of making the fries? Why was the oil too hot? Why did that happen? So the process of the blue team is quintessentially important for us to really grasp, because truly, my opinion, my very humble opinion, Karen Garner starts failure of a possible blue team report. Not for sure, but something in that process failed. And that's right. If we're gonna know, we gotta understand the process.
And see what happened early on.
To discuss like what Commissioner Schneider's talking about of how that failed and why that failed and where it went wrong. So for everybody who doesn't know how blue team works, I think it's vitally important.
Chair Pryor, can I respond?
I believe it was Hildebrand and you, and we'll have to make comments very quick. We've got 5 minutes.
My comment real quick is that I don't know anything about the blue team report. And so to be able to ask questions about it would be impossible for me. And that's why I would really appreciate.
Okay. Commissioner Schneider?
Yeah, I just, I guess I just want to be really careful not to waste our very limited time on trying to all become experts in processes that, you know, realistically, we aren't going to become experts in the next 6 to 7 months. If we're going to really create trust between, you know, the city and the community, we need to just be able to have real talk and real answers that don't require a ton of study, honestly. I guess that's all I have to say. And I would like to just reiterate that I would like to make a motion that we talk to Steve Adams the next meeting and potentially in the following meeting. Thank you.
She made a motion that, sorry, there are folks here who couldn't hear it. She made a motion that our next meeting, we interview City Manager Steve Adams.
Do we know what about?
Commissioner Schneider, can you expand on what you're wanting to ask questions about?
Honestly, I don't have my questions ready. I just think that with the power that Mr. Adams' office has over the police department and a lot of the questions that are causing concern in the community that, again, residents have voiced to me personally since I joined the Trust Commission, I think we should have an open door to ask questions, and they can be shared beforehand. I'm not trying to, you know, ambush anybody, but I think that opportunity is really important.
Would you be more open to it being the second meeting in February?
Mr. Chairman, I have to kind of object.
Commissioner Scholl, yes.
We're running low on time. Somebody made a motion and I've yet to hear a second. And if nobody's going to second, then can we move on or get a second and vote? I mean, I'm not, we can't, with all due respect to Commissioner Schneider, whom I respect, but there's 15 other members on the commission. And so she's made the motion and we're waiting for a second.
Right.
And let's move on.
I think that a decent amount of time has elapsed from it. So Jessica, we will revisit that, I'm sure, at some point. Since we have 2 minutes left, I am going to echo what Commissioner Vick had said. I am going to motion that our meeting on February 7th, we have the blue team come in and give us a 20 to 30 minute presentation, as well as have time at the end for questions. Okay, we have a second. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, all those opposed, please raise your hand. All right, so it passes.
It said list though, people we're gonna interview. City Manager Tyser's on the list, the risk manager's on the list, the HR people are on the list. That we've already, I think that's on a to-do list. Yep. Right?
Wait, say that again for me one more time.
Always had a list of people that were on that list, the risk managers on that list, the HR.
Commissioner Walsh, we can't hear you. Do you have your microphone on?
I was not getting any volume.
I was just reminding us all that we have a list of people that we're going to interview, and that is not off the table.
Right.
City manager's on the list, the risk manager's on the list, and the HR folks are on the list.
Right, and we will have time to be able to get to those.
Yeah.
And with that, it is 8:30, so I'm going to adjourn this meeting. Thank you all. I appreciate your time.